What if beauty could vanish overnight? These Golden Age goddesses had faces that launched 1,000 ships, but fate had other plans. From botched procedures to devastating accidents, these stories will break your heart and change how you see Hollywood's most glamorous era forever. Number 22. Veronica Lake. That cascading blonde hair made Veronica Lake an instant icon, but mental illness and alcohol turned her into Hollywood's most tragic cautionary tale. Lake's signature peekaboo hairstyle was so popular during World War II that the government asked her to change it because factory workers were copying the look and getting caught in machinery. Talk about deadly beauty trends. By the 1950s, Lake's drinking had spiraled completely out of control. She was found working as a cocktail waitress in Manhattan, unrecognizable from her glamorous screen persona. Her once perfect features had become bloated and weathered from years of alcohol abuse. Critics who once praised her mysterious allure now wrote devastating reviews about her deteriorated appearance. The woman who once commanded $4,000 per week was discovered living in a Fleabag hotel, struggling with severe depression and chronic alcoholism. Her final photographs show a shell of her former self, her famous hair now stringy and unkempt. Lake died in 1973, penniless and forgotten, proving that Hollywood's golden goddess facade could crumble faster than anyone imagined. Directors refused to hire her after seeing how drastically her looks had changed, ending a career that should have lasted decades. Number 21. Frances Farmer. Frances Farmer had the kind of striking Nordic beauty that made studio executives salivate, but her rebellious spirit led to treatments so barbaric they destroyed both her mind and her stunning appearance. Farmer wasn't just another pretty face. She was a brilliant intellectual who dared to challenge Hollywood's corrupt system, and they made her pay dearly for it. Her troubles began when she refused to play the typical starlet game, openly criticizing the studio system and expressing controversial political views. When her behavior became unmanageable, her own mother had her committed to a mental institution where she endured years of brutal treatments including electroshock therapy and possibly even a lobotomy, though this remains disputed. The woman who once graced magazine covers emerged from institutional hell looking like a broken ghost of her former self. Her once luminous skin was pale and scarred, her vibrant eyes now vacant and haunted. Fellow patients described her as moving like a zombie, the spark completely extinguished from her being. Farmer's case became a symbol of how Hollywood could systematically destroy anyone who dared to resist their machine. When she finally returned to acting in the 1970s, audiences were shocked by her transformation. The radiant beauty who had commanded the screen was now a fragile, damaged woman whose every movement spoke of unimaginable trauma. Number 20. Jean Seberg. Jean Seberg burst onto screens with her gamine pixie cut and fresh-faced American beauty, but FBI harassment and addiction turned her into a paranoid wreck who butchered her own face with disastrous cosmetic procedures. Seberg wasn't just battling Hollywood, she was fighting the United States government, and her beauty became collateral damage in a war she couldn't win. The FBI targeted Seberg for her support of civil rights causes, launching a campaign of harassment that included spreading false rumors about her personal life. The stress drove her to pills and alcohol, but it was her obsession with plastic surgery that truly destroyed her iconic looks. She became convinced that her face needed constant improvements, leading to a series of botched procedures. By the late 1970s, Seberg's once delicate features had become distorted and unnatural. Her nose had been operated on so many times it looked pinched and artificial. Her face was puffy from medication and surgical swelling that never seemed to fully disappear. Critics noted how her natural charm had been replaced by an almost mannequin-like stiffness. Fellow actors were shocked when they saw her in person, describing her as looking like a wax figure of herself that had been left too close to heat. Seberg's final films show a woman desperately trying to recapture her youthful glow through makeup and lighting tricks, but nothing could hide the damage she had inflicted upon herself in her quest for perfection. Number 19. Inger Stevens. Inger Stevens possessed an ethereal Scandinavian beauty that made her one of television's most desired actresses, but chronic depression and prescription drug abuse gradually eroded her stunning features, until she became unrecognizable from her golden years. Stevens was Hollywood's best-kept secret tragedy, hiding her deterioration behind carefully controlled public appearances. Stevens had battled depression since childhood, stemming from her mother's abandonment and her difficult immigration to America. As her career peaked in the 1960s, she began relying heavily on barbiturates and alcohol to cope with her inner demons. The combination proved devastating to her once flawless complexion and luminous presence. Makeup artists on her later projects worked overtime, trying to conceal the damage. Her skin had lost its natural glow, becoming sallow and marked by stress. Her famous bright eyes grew dull and often appeared glazed from medication. Directors began using softer lighting and creative angles to hide how dramatically her appearance had changed. The woman who had once been compared to Ingrid Bergman now required extensive touch-ups just to appear presentable on camera. Stevens became increasingly reclusive, avoiding social events where her deterioration might be noticed. When she was found dead in 1970 at age 35, those who knew her weren't surprised. Her beauty had been fading for years, a visible manifestation of the pain she carried inside. The vibrant actress who had captivated audiences was gone long before her tragic end. Number 18. Susan Hayward. Susan Hayward had the kind of fiery red hair and fierce green eyes that made her Hollywood royalty, but brain cancer stole not just her life, but her legendary beauty in the cruelest way imaginable. Hayward was a fighter who refused to go down without a battle, making her physical decline all the more heartbreaking to witness. Known for playing strong, determined women on screen, Hayward embodied those qualities in real life. She had clawed her way to the top of Hollywood through sheer determination, surviving countless rejections and setbacks. Her beauty was part of her armor, a weapon she wielded with confidence and power. When brain cancer struck in the early 1970s, it attacked everything that made Hayward distinctive. The treatments left her once lustrous red hair thin and brittle. Her face, which had launched countless movie posters, became swollen and distorted from medication. The fierce intelligence that had blazed in her eyes was dimmed by pain and drugs. Most devastating of all was watching her struggle to maintain her dignity as her body betrayed her. At the 1974 Academy Awards, Hayward made a brave but heartbreaking appearance, clearly fighting to present the glamorous image audiences expected. Her appearance shocked viewers who remembered her at her peak. The proud, beautiful woman they had admired was visibly dying before their eyes, yet she maintained her composure with remarkable grace until the very end. Number 17. Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge shattered Hollywood's color barrier with her breathtaking beauty and incredible talent. But racism, financial ruin, and pills destroyed both her career and her stunning appearance in a tragedy that still haunts the industry today. Dandridge wasn't just beautiful, she was revolutionary, and Hollywood made her pay the ultimate price for daring to dream beyond their limitations. As the first African-American woman nominated for a Best Actress Oscar, Dandridge faced pressures that would have crushed a lesser person. The entertainment industry demanded perfection from her while simultaneously limiting her opportunities because of her race. This impossible situation drove her toward dangerous coping mechanisms. Financial mismanagement by others left Dandridge broke, despite her success, forcing her to take whatever work she could find. The stress aged her prematurely, and she began depending on alcohol and prescription drugs to function. Her once flawless skin lost its luminous quality, and her famous smile became forced and brittle. By the early 1960s, Dandridge's beauty had faded significantly. The woman who had once been called the most beautiful actress in Hollywood now looked exhausted and defeated. Club owners noted how much effort it took for her to maintain her stage presence. When she was found dead in 1965, many in Hollywood felt they had lost not just a talented performer, but a symbol of what the industry could destroy when it failed to nurture its greatest gifts. Number 16. Kim Novak. Kim Novak's cool platinum blonde beauty made her the perfect Hitchcock heroine. But studio pressure to maintain impossible standards led to a lifetime of plastic surgery that gradually transformed her into someone completely different. Novak's story is a masterclass in how Hollywood's obsession with youth can destroy the very thing it claims to worship. Columbia Pictures molded Novak into their answer to Marilyn Monroe, But the pressure to maintain her looks became overwhelming. The studio demanded she stay exactly the same while aging, an impossible task that drove her to increasingly desperate measures. Her naturally beautiful features became her prison. Starting in the 1970s, Novak began a series of cosmetic procedures that would continue for decades. Each surgery was meant to preserve her youth, but the cumulative effect was devastating. Her once expressive face became increasingly mask-like, losing the subtle mobility that had made her such a compelling screen presence. The transformation was so dramatic that by the 2010s, longtime fans struggled to recognize her. The ethereal beauty who had mesmerized audiences in Vertigo had been replaced by someone who looked like a wax museum version of herself. Critics noted how sad it was that someone so naturally beautiful had felt the need to alter herself so extensively. Novak's later public appearances became studies in how plastic surgery can rob someone of the very qualities that made them special in the first place. Number 15. Lana Turner. Lana Turner was discovered at a soda fountain and became Hollywood's ultimate glamour girl. But scandal, stress, and the pressure of constant public scrutiny gradually wore away her legendary beauty until she looked like a shadow of her former radiant self. Turner's life read like a soap opera, and eventually the drama took its toll on her famous face. Turner's personal life was constantly under microscopic examination by the press. Her multiple marriages, tumultuous relationships, and the infamous Johnny Stompanato incident kept her in headlines for all the wrong reasons. The stress of living under such intense scrutiny began showing on her once perfect features. By the 1960s, the strain was becoming visible. Turner's face, which had once been soft and glowing, appeared tighter and more angular. Her famous platinum blonde hair required increasingly frequent treatments that damaged its texture. Makeup artists had to work harder to achieve the luminous look that had once been effortless. The woman who had embodied Hollywood glamour began looking artificial and overly maintained. Her natural beauty had been replaced by a carefully constructed facade that fooled no one. Turner's later films show an actress fighting desperately to recapture her former allure, but the magic was gone. The soda fountain girl who had become a goddess had been worn down by the very fame that created her, proving that sometimes the spotlight burns too bright for human skin to bear. Number 14. Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth was Hollywood's ultimate love goddess, with copper hair and a sultry smile that made her the most desired woman in the world. But Alzheimer's disease slowly stripped away, not just her mind, but the radiant beauty that had made her an icon. Hayworth's decline was particularly cruel because her looks had always been so central to her identity and success. Known as the love goddess, Hayworth had built her career on an intoxicating combination of beauty and sensuality. Her pinup photo was famously pasted on the atomic bomb dropped on Bikini Atoll, making her literally explosive. But the same face that had launched 1,000 fantasies would eventually become unrecognizable. The first signs appeared in the 1970s when Hayworth began forgetting lines and appearing confused on set. As Alzheimer's progressed, it affected not just her memory but her physical appearance. Her once expressive features became vacant and slack. The sultry confidence that had radiated from every pore was replaced by a blank, lost expression. Most heartbreaking was watching her at public appearances in her final years. The woman who had once commanded every room she entered now seemed fragile and confused. Her daughter Yasmin's efforts to care for her mother brought public attention to Alzheimer's disease, but also exposed how completely the illness had transformed one of Hollywood's greatest beauties. The love goddess had become a tragic reminder of how cruelly time and disease can steal everything that once made someone magnificent. Number 13. Judy Garland. Judy Garland had the kind of wholesome beauty that made America fall in love with her as Dorothy, but studio-imposed diet pills, emotional breakdowns, and constant pressure destroyed both her health and her once youthful appearance in ways that shocked even her closest friends. Garland's transformation from fresh-faced teenager to haggard performer became Hollywood's most visible cautionary tale. MGM put teenage Garland on a regimen of amphetamines to keep her thin and barbiturates to help her sleep, starting a cycle of drug dependence that would destroy her life. The studio controlled everything about her appearance, demanding she maintain an impossible standard of perfection while working her to exhaustion. By her 30s, the damage was becoming impossible to hide. Garland's face, which had once glowed with youthful innocence, appeared puffy and aged beyond her years. Her skin lost its natural radiance, becoming sallow and marked by the toll of constant medication. Makeup artists struggled to recreate the fresh look that had once been effortless. The most devastating change was in her eyes. The bright, hopeful expression that had made audiences believe in magic was replaced by a haunted, desperate look that no amount of stage makeup could fully conceal. Garland's later performances became exercises in tragic courage as she fought to maintain her professional standards while visibly deteriorating. When she died at 47, many felt they had watched one of entertainment's greatest talents slowly consumed by the very industry that had created her. Number 12. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe defined beauty for an entire generation, but the pressures of fame, prescription drugs, and possibly botched cosmetic procedures left her looking surprisingly different in her final months, sparking decades of speculation about what really happened to Hollywood's most famous face. Monroe's story isn't just about beauty lost, it's about beauty that became a burden too heavy to bear. Monroe had undergone early cosmetic procedures to refine her look, including a chin implant and nose work that helped create her iconic appearance. But by 1962, those close to her noticed she looked different, possibly from additional work or the effects of the numerous medications she was taking for depression and insomnia. Photographers from her final photo shoots noted that Monroe required more makeup and retouching than ever before. Her face appeared puffy at times and her famous vitality seemed dimmed. The woman who had once glowed with natural sensuality now appeared to be fighting to maintain her image through artificial means. Most mysteriously, the autopsy photos showed a face that many longtime observers claimed looked unlike the Monroe they knew. Whether from drugs, procedures, or the simple toll of a life lived under impossible pressure, something had changed in Hollywood's ultimate beauty. Monroe's death at 36 meant the world would never know how her appearance might have evolved, leaving behind one of entertainment's most enduring mysteries about beauty, fame, and the price of perfection. Number 11. Brigitte Bardot. Brigitte Bardot revolutionized beauty with her pouty lips and tousled blonde hair, becoming the world's ultimate bombshell. But her refusal to age gracefully and embrace of controversial procedures left her looking like a caricature of her former stunning self. Bardot's transformation became a study in how someone can destroy their own legendary beauty through stubbornness and poor choices. Bardot had redefined what it meant to be beautiful, bringing a natural, disheveled sensuality to screens that drove men wild and inspired women worldwide. Her look was so influential that it spawned countless imitators, but none could match her original magnetism and charm. As she aged, Bardot made increasingly desperate attempts to preserve her youthful appearance through cosmetic procedures and extreme lifestyle choices. Her once soft features became over-enhanced and artificial-looking. The natural pout that had been her trademark was exaggerated through injections until it looked grotesque rather than appealing. By the 2000s, Bardot's appearance had become almost shocking to those who remembered her in her prime. The effortless beauty that had made her an international sensation had been replaced by an overdone, almost clownish look that suggested someone fighting desperately against the passage of time. Critics noted how tragic it was that someone so naturally gorgeous had felt compelled to alter herself so dramatically, losing the very qualities that had made her special. Number 10. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor possessed perhaps the most famous violet eyes in cinema history and a face that defined glamour, but years of illness, multiple surgeries, and powerful medications gradually transformed her from breathtaking beauty to unrecognizable shadow of her former self. Taylor's decline was particularly shocking because her beauty had seemed almost supernatural in its perfection. Taylor's problems began with a back injury in the 1950s that led to a lifelong dependence on prescription painkillers. The medications, combined with her love of food and alcohol, began taking a visible toll on her once perfect features. Her face became increasingly puffy and swollen, masking the bone structure that had made her so photogenic. By the 1980s, Taylor's transformation was complete and devastating. The woman who had been called the most beautiful in the world now appeared bloated and heavily made up in every public appearance. Her famous violet eyes were often barely visible behind swollen lids, and her legendary curves had become simply obesity. Most heartbreaking was seeing her at public events, clearly struggling with mobility and breathing issues while trying to maintain the glamorous image audiences expected. Taylor's later years became a lesson in how even the most perfect beauty can be destroyed by poor health choices and medical complications. The goddess who had commanded millions per film was reduced to making perfume commercials. Her appearance so changed that younger audiences couldn't believe she had once been considered the world's most beautiful woman. Number 9. Natalie Wood. Natalie Wood had evolved from adorable child star to sophisticated beauty, with dark eyes and classic features that seemed destined to age gracefully. But her mysterious death at 43 froze her in time, just as lines and life changes were beginning to show on her once flawless face. Wood's story is unique because her beauty was preserved by tragedy rather than destroyed by time. Throughout the 1970s, Wood had been growing more concerned about aging in Hollywood. Friends noted that she had begun considering cosmetic procedures and was becoming increasingly anxious about maintaining her youthful appearance. The pressure to compete with younger actresses was taking its toll on her confidence. Those who knew Wood in her final years reported that she had started drinking more heavily and seemed depressed about the limited roles available to women her age. The stress was beginning to show in her face, with fine lines appearing around her famous eyes and a tightness in her expression that suggested inner turmoil. Wood's death while filming Brainstorm meant that audiences never saw how she might have aged or what choices she would have made about maintaining her appearance. Unlike her contemporaries who lived to face the challenges of growing older in Hollywood, Wood's beauty remains preserved at its peak, making her story both tragic and somehow merciful. Her final completed film shows hints of the mature beauty she might have become, making her loss even more poignant. Number 8. Grace Kelly. Grace Kelly transformed from cool Hollywood blonde to real-life princess. But the pressures of royal life, multiple pregnancies, and the stress of living under constant scrutiny gradually eroded the serene beauty that had made her Hollywood royalty long before she married into actual royalty. Kelly's story proves that even fairy tale endings can have hidden costs. Kelly's beauty had always been described as ice cold and perfect, with classic features that seemed carved from marble. Her transition from actress to princess seemed like the ultimate Hollywood ending, but the reality proved more challenging than the fantasy. The demands of royal protocol required Kelly to maintain an impossible standard of perfection at all times. She could never have a bad hair day or appear less than flawless in public. This pressure, combined with the physical toll of multiple pregnancies and the stress of adapting to Monaco's rigid court life, began showing on her face. By the 1970s, Kelly's appearance had become noticeably more severe and strained. The soft, romantic beauty that had captivated Hitchcock was replaced by a tighter, more artificial look that suggested someone fighting to maintain an image. Her final photographs show a woman who looked older than her years, worn down by the very perfection that had been expected of her. When Kelly died in a car accident in 1982, many noted that she had seemed increasingly unhappy in recent years. The princess who had everything had paid for her fairy tale with the very beauty that had made it possible. Number 7. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow invented the platinum blonde bombshell archetype with her shocking white hair and curvaceous figure, but the toxic chemicals used to achieve her signature look, combined with kidney disease and a short, hard-lived life, destroyed her health and beauty before she reached 27. Harlow's death shocked Hollywood and revealed the deadly price of manufactured glamour. Harlow's platinum blonde hair required constant treatments with bleaching agents, so harsh they burned her scalp and caused her hair to become brittle and thin. The chemicals were absorbed through her skin, potentially contributing to the kidney problems that would eventually kill her. Beauty was literally toxic in Harlow's case. Beyond the hair damage, Harlow's lifestyle was taking its toll. She worked constantly, partied hard, and lived under enormous pressure to maintain her bold, provocative image. The stress aged her rapidly, and by her mid-20s, she required increasingly heavy makeup to maintain her youthful appearance. Harlow's final films show a woman fighting to project vitality while clearly struggling with serious health issues. Her face appeared puffy and pale, and her famous energy seemed forced. When she died during the filming of Saratoga, the production had to use a body double for her remaining scenes, because her appearance had changed so dramatically during her illness. The woman who had defined blonde bombshell beauty for future generations proved that sometimes the pursuit of an impossible image can be literally fatal. Harlow's legacy influenced countless actresses, but her tragic end served as an early warning about the dangers of Hollywood's beauty standards. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner possessed what many considered the most perfect face in Hollywood history, with sultry features that seemed designed by divine intervention, but decades of heavy drinking gradually coarsened and bloated her legendary beauty until she bore little resemblance to the goddess who had driven Frank Sinatra to distraction. Gardner's decline was particularly tragic because her beauty had been so purely natural and seemingly indestructible. Gardner's drinking began as a social activity, but quickly became a coping mechanism for dealing with the pressures of fame and tumultuous relationships. She was known for her ability to drink most men under the table, a talent that seemed glamorous in her youth but proved devastating over time. The effects of alcohol on Gardner's appearance were gradual but relentless. Her once flawless skin became bloated and ruddy. Her perfect bone structure was obscured by puffiness that no amount of makeup could completely hide. The sultry eyes that had mesmerized audiences became bloodshot and dim. By the 1970s, Gardner's transformation was complete and shocking. The woman who had been called the world's most beautiful was now clearly ravaged by years of alcohol abuse. Her voice had become gravelly from smoking and drinking, and her movements had lost the fluid grace that had made her so captivating on screen. Gardner's final years were spent largely in isolation, too proud to appear in public looking so different from her legendary image. When she died in 1990, many noted that the real Ava Gardner had disappeared decades earlier, slowly consumed by the very lifestyle that had seemed so glamorous in her Hollywood heyday. Number 5. Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo had perhaps the most mysterious and captivating beauty in cinema history, with cheekbones that could cut glass and eyes that seemed to hold ancient secrets. But her famous reclusiveness after retiring at 35 sparked decades of speculation about why she hid from the world and what had happened to her legendary face. Garbo's story is unique because she chose to preserve her beauty by disappearing entirely. Garbo's decision to retire at the height of her beauty and career baffled Hollywood and her fans worldwide. She had shown no signs of aging or declining appeal, making her withdrawal even more mysterious. Some suspected she feared the aging process and chose to preserve her image by vanishing while still perfect. Paparazzi spent decades trying to capture candid photos of the reclusive star, but Garbo became expert at avoiding cameras. The few images that surfaced showed a woman who had clearly aged but seemed determined to prevent the world from seeing her as anything other than the timeless beauty they remembered. Those rare individuals who encountered Garbo in her later years reported that she remained striking, but had clearly made efforts to disguise her appearance. She wore scarves, large sunglasses, and shapeless clothing, seemingly determined to erase any trace of the glamorous star she had once been. When Garbo died in 1990, she had successfully maintained her mystique for nearly 50 years. Unlike her contemporaries who aged in public, Garbo preserved her legendary beauty by refusing to let the world see it fade. Her strategy worked perfectly, leaving behind an image of timeless perfection that no amount of aging could diminish. Number 4. Vivien Leigh. Vivien Leigh possessed an ethereal beauty that made her perfect for both Scarlett O'Hara and Blanche Dubois, but bipolar disorder and the shock treatments used to combat it gradually destroyed both her mental stability and her delicate, porcelain-like features. Leigh's decline was particularly heartbreaking because her beauty had seemed so fragile and precious from the beginning. Leigh's mental illness first manifested during her marriage to Laurence Olivier, with episodes of mania followed by devastating depressions. The treatments available in the 1950s and 1960s were primitive and brutal, including electroshock therapy that affected both her memory and her physical appearance. The medication prescribed for her condition caused weight fluctuations and bloating that altered her face dramatically. The elfin features that had made her so photogenic became puffy and distorted. Her skin lost its luminous quality, becoming pale and lifeless between increasingly rare public appearances. Most devastating was the change in her eyes. The bright intelligence and mischievous sparkle that had captivated audiences was replaced by a dull, medicated blankness that suggested someone fighting demons others couldn't see. Leigh's final performances required enormous courage as she struggled to project her former vitality while clearly battling severe illness. When tuberculosis finally claimed her life in 1967, many felt that the real Vivien Leigh had been gone for years, slowly consumed by an illness that stole not just her sanity, but the ethereal beauty that had made her irreplaceable. Her story remains one of Hollywood's most tragic examples of how mental illness can destroy everything that makes someone special. Number 3. Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr was called the most beautiful woman in the world and proved she had brains to match by co-inventing technology that led to Wi-Fi and GPS. But her obsession with maintaining her legendary looks through constant plastic surgery transformed her into an unrecognizable shell of her former stunning self. Lamarr's tragedy was that her intelligence couldn't save her from destroying her own greatest asset. Lamarr's beauty had seemed almost supernatural in its perfection, with features so flawless they didn't seem entirely human. This otherworldly quality made her perfect for the exotic roles that defined her career, but it also created impossible pressure to maintain that standard as she aged. Starting in the 1950s, Lamarr began what would become a decades-long series of cosmetic procedures. Each surgery was intended to preserve or enhance her beauty, but the cumulative effect was devastating. Her naturally perfect features became increasingly artificial and distorted with each intervention. By the 1980s, Lamarr's appearance had become shocking to those who remembered her in her prime. The face that had launched 1,000 magazine covers was now virtually unrecognizable, altered beyond any resemblance to the goddess fans remembered. Her once expressive features had become mask-like and immobile. The most tragic aspect of Lamarr's transformation was that someone so intelligent had made such consistently poor decisions about her appearance. The woman who had helped invent modern wireless technology had destroyed her own face through an obsession with artificial enhancement. Her later years were spent in isolation, too embarrassed by her appearance to face the public that had once worshipped her beauty. Number 2. Jayne Mansfield. Jayne Mansfield had everything Marilyn Monroe had plus a genius-level IQ, but her desperate pursuit of publicity and increasingly outrageous stunts to stay relevant culminated in the car accident that not only killed her, but created one of Hollywood's most gruesome and unforgettable final images. Mansfield's story proves that sometimes the hunger for fame can literally be fatal. Mansfield had built her career on being bigger, blonder, and more outrageous than any other bombshell. Her publicity stunts became increasingly desperate as her career declined, leading to the late-night car trip that would end everything. The accident was so severe that initial reports claimed she had been decapitated, though this was later disputed. What made Mansfield's death particularly shocking was how it contrasted with her carefully maintained image of bubbly, innocent sensuality. The woman who had spent her career projecting eternal youth and vitality was suddenly gone in the most violent way imaginable, leaving behind images that destroyed any illusion of Hollywood glamour. The photographs from the accident scene were so disturbing, they changed how celebrities traveled and led to safety improvements in vehicle design. Mansfield's death became a watershed moment that ended the era of blonde bombshells who lived dangerously for publicity. Most tragically, Mansfield died just as she was beginning to be taken seriously as an actress and was planning a career comeback. Her beauty was preserved in death, but at the ultimate cost. The accident that killed her also destroyed any chance for redemption or the mature career she had been working toward. Number 1. Sharon Tate. Sharon Tate represented the absolute pinnacle of 1960s beauty, with an angelic face and golden hair that seemed to glow from within. But her murder by Charles Manson's followers didn't just end her life at 26. It created one of Hollywood history's most haunting and tragic images of beauty destroyed by pure evil. Tate's story transcends typical Hollywood tragedy to become something approaching mythical horror. Tate had been on the verge of major stardom when she was killed, with her beauty and emerging talent promising a career that could have rivaled any actress of her generation. Her pregnancy at the time of her death added another layer of tragedy to an already unthinkable crime. The brutality of Tate's murder shocked even hardened Hollywood observers and law enforcement officials. The contrast between her ethereal beauty and the violence inflicted upon her created an image of innocence destroyed that haunted popular culture for decades. The crime scene photographs were so disturbing they were sealed for years. What made Tate's death particularly devastating was how it represented the end of the innocent, flower power era of the 1960s. Her murder marked the moment when the decade's optimism and beauty turned dark and dangerous. The angel-faced actress became a symbol of paradise lost. Tate's beauty was preserved forever at its peak, but at the ultimate cost. Unlike other actresses who lost their looks to time, disease, or poor choices, Tate's beauty was destroyed by an act of incomprehensible evil that remains one of the most shocking crimes in entertainment history. These stories prove that beauty in Hollywood's golden age came with a price tag written in tears, pills, and tragedy. Which transformation shocked you the most? Comment below with your thoughts, but here's the real question. Knowing what we know now about the cost of impossible beauty standards, are we any smarter today, or are we still destroying our goddesses in different ways? Your answer might reveal more about our society than you're comfortable admitting.